Hi everyone, my name is Fernanda Arias and I'm so excited to be with you today. I am a psychologist. I am also the co-founder and chief operating officer at Blockchain Jungle, and I also lead the operations at an AI company called Dojo. You probably see my presentation and the first thing that comes to mind is she's here to tell me to stop using AI or that it is bad. But that couldn't be furthest away from the truth. Actually, I live on both sides of this thing and I use AI every single day, so believe me when I say I'm not here to tell you that it is bad. But I am here to talk about something that is starting to affect companies and that almost nobody is asking. Why your best people will quit even though AI has made them more productive. Now, it all started a couple weeks ago when a friend of mine, who's starting to get his marketing degree, came to me and asked, "That's serious. Why did I spend the last 4 years of my life learning this if Claude can do it better than me in 10 seconds?" The thing is that he wasn't joking or being dramatic. He was doing the math on his own relevance and he was coming up short. We keep asking the same question about AI over and over again. Will AI take my job? But that is just the tip of the iceberg. The truth is way beneath and far scarier, and it's even more closely related to our identity and who we think we are. Who am I when a machine can do the things that define me better than I can? Think about where that identity even comes from. I am good at this. It's really just I did this and it worked 1,000 times over. Who you are is built piece by piece on what you have accomplished. We have tied ourselves and our worth, our belief of our own self value on the things that we have accomplished over time. So when the machine comes and takes over that accomplishment, it isn't just taking away our task, it is pulling out the bricks that you built yourself with. And that's why the real question here is where will my sense of accomplishment come from if a machine does the thinking for me? A 2026 study tracked 539 workers, and the ones who leaned on AI passively, that means the small tasks, the email writing, summarizing, etc., they didn't lose their jobs, but they lost something worse. The first, self-efficiency. That's the belief that you could actually do the work. Second, ownership. That's the sense that the work you did was actually that the work they did was actually theirs. And third, meaning. The feeling that what they did all day actually counted up for something. So it wasn't a drop in pay or a drop in title, but just the quiet sense that what they did didn't matter. And here's some numbers that should bother us. The people that find meaning in their work are 12 and a half times more likely to be engaged. So not twice, not 5 times more likely, 12 and a half times more likely. And in 2025, only 19 of workers worldwide were fully engaged. So that tells us something. We're not losing our jobs, but we're losing the psychological infrastructure that made us feel like our work actually mattered. You see, AI didn't only take away the big things. It doesn't even start there. It starts with the small things. Nella Richardson, she's the chief economist at ADP, after serving 39,000 workers across 36 countries, put it plainly. AI does the things that used to make us feel productive. It writes our emails, it summarizes the small stuff. So it took away our checklist of victories, the things that made us feel in a Tuesday afternoon that what we did all day was actually productive, that we did something ourselves. Let's go back. Let's go a little bit into the psychology. And this is going to be a little bit of a side class, so just bear with me because it's actually some of the things that you actually learn when studying this. But it's worth it, I promise. So, three out of the biggest names in the field, working separately and decades apart, all ended up describing the same wound. They just gave it different names. The first, Viktor Frankl. Frank was a psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, and out of that experience, he built an entire school of therapy called logotherapy, the therapy of meaning. His core idea is that the deepest human drive is in pleasure, it is in power, it is in money, it is the search for meaning. We need it in the way that we need oxygen. So he even gave a name to that emptiness that we feel on the Sunday afternoon when we have absolutely nothing to do and we start to question our own existence. He called it Sunday neurosis. And if AI takes over our thinking, that Sunday neurosis becomes an everyday thing. The second is Martin Seligman. He's the father of positive psychology, and he spent his entire career on a simple question: what do humans need to flourish? His answer was a model called PERMA, and it has 5 pillars. The first, positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. Now count how many AI has already cracked. Engagement? I mean, it is hard to feel absurd when you actually didn't do the work. Meaning and accomplishment. 3 out of 5 and counting still. And the third is Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, the two psychologists behind the self-determination theory. That is probably the most validated theory on human motivation that we have. And they prove that we need three things to stay motivated. The first, competence. That's the feeling of being capable. Second, autonomy, which is the feeling of being in control of our own choices. And third is relationships, basically. Yeah, relatedness, the feeling of being connected to others. So I mean, it's hard to feel connected when your closest collaborator all day is a chatbot. And the thing is that nobody have really connected all these three together, unless now, like they are even more important now in the era of AI, and yet nobody had connected this to what we're living right now. So to continue with the cycles, there's these patterns of thinking that cause us to have to cause us to have like some mental health issues. For example, like when we feel anxious, and these patterns of thinking that are distorted are called cognitive distortions. And there's a lot of them, but AI triggers specifically these four. And these are some that even Beck, Burns, and even Albert Ellis had mapped decades ago. The first is overgeneralization. So, an example of this would be, for example, the AI wrote a better email, so that means that it is better at me at everything. The all or nothing. For example, if the machine can do my job, then that means I'm worthless. Discounting the positive. That is, for example, I led the whole project, but the AI did the mechanical work. So what I did actually didn't count it, or I really didn't do anything. And fourth, catastrophizing. That they'll replace me, I'll never find work again, the career is over. Basically, all the thoughts and all fear just brushing it all at once. And honestly, sometimes I even catch myself thinking some of them. But here's where it gets complicated. As a therapist, you're trying to treat the distorted thoughts, these cognitive distortions, with something called cognitive behavioral therapy. And it basically works by replacing the distorted thought with an accurate one. For example, if you feel worthless, then the therapist will show you that that thought is exaggerated and why. And then you will feel better. It will help you change your pattern of thinking. And and it works. But what happens when the thought isn't exaggerated? The machine writes faster than me. Well, that is true. And that is not a distortion, that's an observation. So even if you come to me and say the machine wrote a better email than me, well, yeah, that's probably true. So where is the actual distortion here? My worth equals my output. The AI is better than me at X, that's a fact. But therefore, I have no value, that's the belief. And it's what Beck called a core belief. My worth equals my output. It's not even yours. It's something that we have inherited from 200 years of industrial economy. AI didn't create the problem, but it has made it unbearable. Now let's go back in history for a bit to 1811 England, where a group of textile workers started smashing things around. History called them lunatives, and ever since we have used their names as insults. Those idiots who feared progress. Except that's not what actually happened. They were actually very skilled artisans who had spent years mastering their skills and who lost themselves when the machines came in. One historian called their uprising a response to a profound loss of place, identity, a shared culture. You could even call it grief. They didn't hate technology, but they hated what it was doing to them. Does it sound familiar? Think about that person on your team who quietly resists AI, who is constantly criticizing the output AI gives, who drags their feet, who just finds reasons not to use it. We tend to read that as a fear of technology or as being behind. But the truth is that it is actually almost never about the tech itself. It is the same wound that happened in 1811 to the Luditives. They're not resisting the tool itself, but they're protecting their sense of place, their identity, and the thing that they were good at. The resistance your skin isn't a skills problem, it's a meaning problem. Just wearing a skills costume. And here's something that nobody mentions. The damage actually outlived the factories. Research from Cambridge found that the same communities today show neuroticism at 33% above the national average, and life satisfaction at a 29% lower. 2 centuries later, the scars pass down from parents to children in what we call generational trauma. And what healed it? Well, it wasn't a new policy. It wasn't taking the machines away and putting them back on the factories. It was the arts and crafts movement. People going back to making things by hand. So think about that for a second. They were skilled artisans who were taking what they did, what they could actually put their skills on away, but now it comes the arts and crafts movement, something that you can do by hand again. And it worked because that was a mechanical displacement. It was muscles and hands. But this time it is cognitive. And that's scarier because the cognitive part is closer to who we think we are, to our identity. So if the workplace will stop giving us that feeling, then where will our accomplishment come from? Bandura showed that confidence, self-efficiency, is built from mastery of experiences. So the small wins, the I tried and it worked, basically. When AI does the task, it doesn't just save you time, it removes the raw material that your confidence was built on. Shix and Mihai show that flow, which is the state of total absorption, basically like the state that we need to be in to actually absorb new information, actually really learn, needs your skill matched to a real challenge. But what happens right now when we get a challenge? We maybe try a couple times and then we just give the task to the AI, right? That's what I do. If the machine does the hard part, then the balance will break. And there's no challenge, so there's no flow. The psychologist John Mayer gave the risk a name, cognitive deskilling. And he went further. He said that it's not just our skills that erode, it's our self concept. And one day you're not going to be sure what you're good at anymore. Isn't it scary, right? Companies are already feeling this actually. Deloitte surveyed 23,000 Gen Z and millennials and realized that out of those, 44% had already left the job because it lacked purpose. So think about it. It's not about that they paid badly or that they wanted a bigger title or that hours thing. It was because it lacked purpose, because it felt empty. And from those, 89% said that purpose is critical to their job satisfaction. Germany's SOEP panel found that the same pattern workers found the same pattern. Workers using AI got more productive, yet less satisfied. So even though the output went up, the meaning started to go down. And that's something that we hadn't seen before on other generations, where usually our output had been tied to our meaning because that's something that we had accomplished, right? So here's the fix that everyone I know is reaching for right now. Because as a leader myself, we're trying to, tackle a skills gap. We're tackled to buy a solution for the problem we see. So our first thought is probably, I'll get a workshop, a certification. I will train them not to feel that way. Because when there's a skills gap, that's something you can buy a solution for. But you can really train your way out of a meaning crisis. So if the wound is I'm not sure who I am anymore, then buying a course of better prompting or on AI will just make the machine better at what they used to be proud of. It will just like accelerate the problem. So if training isn't the answer, then what is? One of the best books that I have read on this topic is called The Last Skill by Juan Guerrero. And it talks about the 4 proofs that a human was actually here. The 4 things that AI will never be able to take away from us. The first is creativity, the origin of something that didn't exist and couldn't be predicted. The second, governance, is basically knowing where to go, not just the fastest route to get there. Third, decision making. So the cut. To be able to say, like, this is what we're doing, and if it's wrong, if it's the wrong call, then I will own it. And fourth, reputation. It's the one asset that cannot be faked in a world where everything else is. Now, here's what clicked for me. The move was never really to stop automating. Because you can't, and honestly, you shouldn't. I mean, like, we need to move forward with the world, right? With the world. The move is to amplify this for. Let the machine take the root, then put the time that it frees up into the four things that decide where that route even goes. So, for example, let automation handle the output, but make leadership amplify the human. And the first one will pay for the second. So, everything I'm about to say will come down to these four. Will come down to this question: is this amplifying one of these four, or quietly automating it away? Or trying to, at least. Here's what it will look like in practice: change what you reward. We have been trained and we are used to rewarding the output. Like that person that hit the KPIs better and faster, and how fast, for example. But when the machine is making the output, then what the scoreboard quietly tells your employees, is that they are becoming optional. So move the recognition from the output to what only the human can do. The direction they set, the call they made, the idea that nobody prompted, and tell them out loud, that was you. Two, keep people that decide. So there's a real difference between I use AI to do my work and I watch AI do my job. Deci and Ryan called it autonomy. So design the workflows so that AI will propose, but the human dispose, and give people harder calls to make, not necessarily fewer. And three, rebuild connection on purpose. And that I'm not telling you here to just, like, if you're a virtual company, to go back to the workplace, because this can perfectly work in a virtual form. Where closest collaborator all day is a chatbot, then relatedness erodes. So put people back in contact. Pairing, for example, human review, mentorship, trust a human to human protocol that compounds over time. And four, measure meaning early. Now, engagement is a lagging indicator, and by the time it drops, the person is already halfway out the door. So track it directly. Ask people if their work still counts before it becomes attrition. For leadership specifically, the word here that matters is before. So this one is low and invincible, and by the time the symptoms show, the damage will already be done. So three things. First, once again, name it. Give people the vocabulary, the language to put to their loss, to their grief. Stand up and tell them that their work was never connected to their output. The Luditive's real mistake, it wasn't fearing or resisting the machines. It was having no words for what it was taking. Two, model a new equation. Celebrate judgment, care, the call, the teaching, not just velocity. And here's the payoff that most leaders won't see coming. Let's go back to that guy in our company, that person that slowly resists AI. When you break the equation from your worth equals your output, you don't just get people to feel better about themselves, but you get adoption. Because the resistance was never really about the tool. It was just someone scared, protecting their identity, protecting what the machine was going to take away from them. The moment that they see that AI is there to amplify what makes them valuable and not erase them, then the wall will come down. And third, learn a new attrition. It won't look like burnout. It will look like emptiness. In your best, yeah, even in your best KPI hitting people, the ones that can't tell you why they are hollow. So none of this will really slow AI down. It's actually what makes AI land. It refuses to let the productivity gain quietly cost you the people who make it worth anything. And it turns the resistors into adopters. See, it was the machine was never the one taking our sense of accomplishment. That it was the old equation. The worth equals your output. And as a leader, you get the chance to either reinforce that or break it. So for you personally, let me tell you that your accomplishment is still there. I mean, in the work the machine can do for you, in what you choose to create, in your reputation, in the cause you own, the trust you built. AI can do the thinking, but it cannot do the becoming. But I know that you're not here just for you. So for you're not here just deciding for yourself. So for every person on your team who is looking up to you and asking, who am I now? Whether they say it out loud or not, you are the one that gets to decide whether their job hands them an answer or takes it away. Whether work still gives them something to be proud of or just something to supervise. The machine will only take their sense of accomplishment if you let it. So just please don't let it. And if there's two things that I want you to take away from this are these. First, how do you leverage AI's productivity gains without losing your people? Reinvest the time saved into the four proofs. Don't extract 100%. Reward judgment and ownership, not output and volume. Name the human's contribution. Let AI propose and let the human dispose. Let the human decide. Measure the meaning early. And second, how does leadership get ahead of the cultural impact before it drives people out? So name the loss, give people the language for it. Realize that it is a grieving process. Two, break the equation, celebrate the four proofs and not velocity. And redesign the rules, don't just restrain. A meaning wound is not a skills gap, remember, you can't train your way out of a meaning crisis. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Fernanda Arias, and if any of this resonated or you push back on it, I would genuinely love for us to talk. So you can reach me through my LinkedIn, through my Instagram, my X, or even my email. And I am really happy that I was able to give this talk to you today. Thank you.